the debates that end up happening on contentious subjects. It's basically a large group of ignorant people arguing that their ignorance is just as good as someone's expertise.
But you've got you've got the problems of no knowledge, of lack of knowledge, which is obviously easily, if you've got open-minded people who are reasonable, that's an easily solved or easily won argument because you just need to present them with the actual knowledge and then they'll agree with you because they realise it. But then you've got people who actually just have a different way of looking at their world and the lack of knowledge, or there's no ignorance involved, it's just a simple, different way of being, you know, and that's what those are the type of issues that are never going to be... They're just interesting discussions, like philosophy.
However, like you say, it's just an interesting discussion. How is that any different to any other fact? The way that we look at the world, arguably there are better or worse ways to look at it. So that is absolutely another discussion.
Better or worse than what? What do you mean? Like in
we
what
see
way?
things.
Inability.
The question is, we see things the way we are. We don't see things the way they are.
Yeah, we see it through our eyes. There's no way to see it
through our eyes, our own interpretation.
Yeah, everything is subjective.
Is that a TV? I don't know. It could be.
It's a valid question. It's better in terms of what? That's the question. If you need to... ultimately, you need to identify your ultimate goals. For me, for example, you know, a happy, pleasant life of pleasure and adventure is my goal.
Yeah.
Therefore, I need to know my approach to the world must be one which allows me to identify
with
the reality, the reality, so that I can live my life in the way which optimizes my chance of achieving my goal.
Right.
If if your goals are different, then so better in terms of what? Better in terms of if your goal is to not die, then knowing that's
what are threats to you.
That food which someone says will cure the cancer that I've got. If I want to believe them because facts don't matter, I just want to believe stuff. Then if my goal is to live, and I put my belief in a non-cure, then that is a bad way to approach the data.
You're not religious, are you?
And you haven't.
So like that's one crystal example I can think of. If your goal is to survive and you want to believe in things without evidence, then you're likely to put your belief into something that's
But I understand what you're saying, but like, I mean, you got to look at the power of belief as actually what makes.
So what are you saying? Mind over matter? You think your mind?
Well, the powers of placebo effect is very strong.
I know this is only not like this way of looking at things.
That's how they decide.
Because I like to not die. Yeah.
I want to stay as long as possible.
No, I just think that sometimes that's actually all that matters, because if you believe it's going to cure you, right, and let's say it doesn't, but from like this factual points of view, it doesn't actually cure you, but something else came and cured you, or like helped you out or something, and that person doesn't actually know.
I know. Continue.
Doesn't actually realise that it wasn't the thing that they put their faith in, but they actually still were cured anyway from something else that might have happened.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the belief
false
in that
attribution.
particular. Okay, there's a label. Great. So it wasn't actually. It wasn't actually.
Sounds a lot better.
It's not like you go about life and you try and pinpoint something with my faith and that's going to cure me, and that you don't make intentions that direct. You can simply put your intention out there as, I want to cure myself, given the tools I have in my environment to do so. I believe that that's going to happen, and I'm putting that belief shallowly in this product, whatever it is, but because that intention to heal yourself is so great, the universe heals it for you some way.
The secret.
And I'm not saying that that's how I'm just saying that's another way things work.
Yes.
Because things can work. It's just simply because you believe it that makes it real.
Yeah, so what the secret
I disagree
is...
completely.
Real enough to be to satisfy that person on a certain level.
I believe
if you believe satisfaction is adequate as opposed to reality, then that's exactly what I mean about better in what way.
Talking about the power of the mind is there's a possibility, and there's a provable possibility that the power of the mind can, if you're talking about your own physical issues, can overcome.
Well, yeah, I think that it can.
Yeah, no, it can. It can. I believe it can, but to the point of putting any faith in it, then I would not go down that road.
Do you mean putting all your eggs in one basket, the magic basket?
Well, you can.
I have.
Keep
There's
the tiny little egg.
History teaches us an awful lot about this, because throughout all human history, people have had the ability to believe and think things, but it was only the invention of antibiotics that started saving lives and vaccines that brought the death rate of these diseases down. So at the end of the day, the evidence says actual active ingredients that act in a way that we didn't necessarily understand at the time, but now we can say we understand how these work and why these work, and we can test them and prove that they work, and this works. And at the same time, we can do the same sorts of tests on things like belief and show that it has zero effect.
Yeah.
I disagree, though.
But it has zero effect.
But disagreeing doesn't change the evidence.
Well, okay, I'm just presenting you with the point that maybe
No,
I have something to say about that.
Okay.
Look, there's too many variables for you to work that out.
I can't prove you wrong by telling you my argument. I'm not saying that.
Sleep could be anything. It could be power of your mind. You could have a feeble-minded person who's never going to happen, a strong one. I don't know. I believe in a bit about what you're saying.
I'm curious to hear your perspective on the incredibly high rate of death and succumbing to diseases prior to antibiotics and vaccines.
No, I'm not saying that antibiotics doesn't work.
I know you're not saying that, but why doesn't
better in any way?
But why didn't belief save more people?
Of course, antibiotics works. It works just like you can explain the physical world with science and maths. That all fits lovely. Just like you can medical science fits lovely in the way you can figure out what enzymes acting on your body to heal it. Great.
Yeah.
That's just one way that the world works on that physical level. And I think there's other stuff that just like our limited capacity that our human brain is unable to fully comprehend because we just don't have the tools for it. And I think that the magical land is one of those lands that we're just unable to comprehend it. And I think that's where belief lies.
But you believe that this magic land, the power of brain, acts in our universe to affect it?
Yes, I do.
So if it acts in the universe to affect it, then it can be measured.
Well, yeah, it should be.
Should be able to be. But
I don't think we're at that level yet. And I don't think the tools we use to measure simply aren't good enough that's not.
Well, how much do they need to get? Because
it's not on a technology level. Okay. Yeah, our technology is good, but the technology is only related to the physical world. Like it just
so why hasn't someone in this multi-billion-dollar industry, magic healing and thoughts and psychics, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, why hasn't anyone invented something with all of their knowledge and expertise in this to measure it?
I don't know. Why don't they do that? Let's write that down as one of our little ideas. I don't know. I don't think that...
Well, let's look at it.
I have a theory.
That part of our brain it's not understood. It's not being used.
Is it a measurable
But why is it still not understood by all these experts in the fields?
I think there are a lot of people out there who believe that they would know it for a fact that it works. Experts in fields like that.
I know. So why haven't they developed a tool, an instrument to measure?
Because it's not measurable like that. It's not like science.
But if it has an impact on the real world,
so it should be explainable in that way.
It should be measurable. Otherwise, if it has an impact or it doesn't. If it has an impact, then there's an impact to be measured. It doesn't have to be measured directly. We can't necessarily measure the light waves.
Measuring the cause and effect. Perhaps the cause isn't directly related to the effect because the effect only manifests itself in the physical world, and the cause of it is not the same on the same plane. Like it's not. You can't link the two.
I think there are too many variables for us to even go down this road because the variables are so extreme that
you get caught in this circle forever.
Yeah. It's a fucking Groundhog Day. It'll be a loop, because you can't. It's even with my brain starting to comprehend. Well, let's set up a test scenario where you got this guy's doing this, and it's just fucking too outrageous. You know what I mean? Like I know what you mean. I think you know what she means, but it's to the point where
I don't know what you mean. Oh.
Yeah. I don't think we can go any further into that. We're just going to be talking about.
And we've got a few more topics to get into.
We've got more topics,
Well, it leads perfectly into the next one, really.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
What's the next one?
Simulation theory.
Yeah, it does actually.
No, it does.
Because interestingly enough, I'm not a proponent. I'm willing to believe that the world being a simulation is entirely viable as an idea.
Yeah, I think it definitely.
How do you get to that
Okay, I heard an argument once, a mathematical argument for the idea that the universe is a giant simulation.
Yeah.
And I quite like it. However, arguably it's actually not real yet. Because the argument goes, the day that we can simulate a universe in a computer, and it's probably not too far off.
Really?
Yeah, probably. Like, simulate meaning create, rules of law, laws of nature. Simple
Where
calculations.
things act.
Yeah.
Individually, things act in their own accord.
Artificial
Within the rules of the...
Within the computer.
the rules.
Like, we've got some massive supercomputers. Like, that's even irrelevant. Desktop computers are massive supercomputers from 20 years ago.
Yeah, from
right?
20 years ago.
So, like, in the near future, everything, everyone knows Moore's law, but that's nothing. All of computation and storage
it doubles.
is even more than doubles. Like, it's amazingly exponential. So in the near future, we'll have the computational power. All we need is the right person or brain or setup, I don't know exactly what, to figure out how to set up a simulation of a virtual world of some capacity. And so the second we can do that, that means immediately there are two known worlds to exist. Our one and the simulated one.
Yeah.
That means there's a 50-50 chance that an existent being exists in a virtual world.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is the second you create one, it's not very hard to create a million, which means statistically, every being that exists has a 1 in a million chance of existing in the real world. Every other being...
That's awful.
Every other being exists in a virtual world.
Oh, that's a bit... Well, who cares, though?
Yeah, I don't.
I know, but you're not trying to say it was a bad thing.
No, it's a
that's a very
mathematical...
interesting thing to the way to look at it.
Because...
So it reminds me of this thing I read once. You have, like I said, in the near future, a desktop computer will be able to process information and respond as fast as a human brain can. Like, we might be at a stage yet now with supercomputers, but a desktop, you know what I mean?
Depends what you mean, like, they process things at the speed of light, faster than the human brain. The human brain is actually quite sluggish.
So what word am I going for there? Like, just calculation. Like
calculations per second.
Calculation per second or something.
It's the parallel processing power thing. It's actually a different type of computation.
Well, if you put a future desktop in a black box, and you put a brain in another black box, and you ask each black box a question, and you get the same answer, then... how can you tell which is a human? Which is where...
Or does it matter?
Well, does it matter? Well, then you get the...
By what qualification?
What's the difference?
Depends what
what are we worrying about here? The thing about simulation theory that I think is interesting is that it's like we always tend to come up with answers for things given the state of affairs at the time and our ability to think about certain things and what we're put in front of our face every day. And at the moment, our peak is in technology and it's in thinking in the way of computers and our peak is that. And so now we're like, ooh, maybe everything is like that. Maybe everything is a computer.
Brains are like computers.
Yeah, and isn't that
like
convenient? Because we've just invented them. You know what I mean? So, and that's the only thing that I think is strange about this. And like, if you look at comparison to that compared to say back in ancient times when the things that they were thinking about back then was so much shamanism, they'd drink ayahuasca and they'd be fucking tripping out in other realms, right? That's what they used to do. That was what they were faced with every day. And so their hypothesis about reality was that there were other worlds and in your mind, and so that's what they believed because that's the world that they lived, So it's just the same shit.
Are you talking
world that we live in the moment?
With this simulation theory? Are you talking about because with physicists, like, they can go crazy because as soon as you break things down to, you get a microscope, you see it at a certain, depth, and then you can go further down with whatever instrument shows you to the point where you start seeing DNA, and then you keep going further than that. Yeah. Is that sort of along the lines of the simulation theory? Like, as in, like, the more you microscope shit, then the more it just sort of eventually looks like the Matrix.
Well, didn't they realise that recently they found a code like that that's... Like the 101, not that it's...
That's what CERN is.
There was recent research has been published. I briefly read it, and I can't remember it exactly. But the argument was that looking at the structure of the universe at a subatomic level, and it was something to do with rays, as in a ray is a line from a point, that they seem to operate in parallel in the universe. This is what I remember from it. Better if I looked it up. But yeah, it was like something about it the way that these, the particles move and waves move, and they seem to operate in a parallel way, in much the way that you would expect if it was being done on a computational system rather than in a vacuum. And that was my vague memory of it, but they were basically saying that the substrate of our